The reason you can't give it to them. He writes Deus Miserere Nobis, the Codex of Whispers. It is not a book. The silencer's eyes search yours, looking for a flicker of understanding, a hint of where the manuscript is hidden. He sees only terror and something else he mistakes for defiance. He cannot possibly comprehend the truth you are protecting. The Codex isn't a collection of whispers written on vellum. It is something alive. These people weren't preparing for a spiritual journey. They were erasing their own history moments before death. Then comes the analysis of the wounds. You look at the deep, precise groove across the preserved neck of a bog body. The hyoid bone is crushed. Historians called it a ritualistic strangling, but modern forensic pathologists know better. You feel the thin, oiled cord slip around your throat from behind. It's not the clumsy pull of a rope, it's the practiced, efficient twist of a garrote. The sound is not a scream, but a choked, wet gasp as your airway closes. The air is thick with the smell of damp straw, stale sweat, and the metallic tang of your own fear. Your name is Roger Bacon, and you are a prisoner of the light. Not God's light, but the light of knowledge. With a trembling hand, you pick up a shard of flint. Your slate, the smooth, dark square of rock, is your only confidant. You press the flint to the slate. The sound is a dry, intimate whisper, an ASMR quality shh that fills the crushing silence of your world. It's the only music you have left. The most powerful merchant in Bruges isn't the man with the fur-lined coat you just passed in the street. It's not the alderman in his fine house or the bishop in his cathedral. The real power in this city, the person who controls the flow of wealth that is its very lifeblood, is a woman. And history, written by the men who fear her, has buried her name so deep you will never find it in any official record. The air in here is a living thing. The sound of vellum shriveling is a dry, whispering hiss, like 1,000 secrets dying at once. 99% of people believe this was a war against the devil. The forbidden truth is far more terrifying. It was a war against progress, a war against you. Centuries from now, a historian will find a letter hidden within the false bottom of a reliquary box. The paper is so brittle, it threatens to turn to dust at a touch. The ink, made from oak galls and iron, has faded to the color of a faint bruise. Ilara is applying a primitive penicillin, a poultice of natural antibiotics that can fight the demon in Bjorn's blood far better than any prayer. In our time, a 2018 study at the University of Warwick would recreate a 10th century recipe very similar to this one. They discovered it killed 90% of MRSA, the antibiotic-resistant superbug that terrifies modern hospitals. This knowledge wasn't lost, it was buried. Why? Because a populace that can heal itself is a populace that no longer fears God's wrath as a punishment for sickness. A book that proved the Dark Ages were only dark because someone had extinguished the lights. They burned entire libraries searching for it, executing scholars who swore it didn't exist. The silencer's grip tightens slightly. I am a patient man, he lies, his breath a foul promise. But my masters are not. The Codex. But here is the secret that drove the cardinal to wall his diary away forever. A truth that even most silencers don't know. The cardinal, in his final, terrified entry, realized their mistake. The reason they could never find it. Swallowing the words, the diagrams, the secrets, in a final, desperate act of defiance. This is not a ritual. This is the destruction of evidence. The modern forensic reports lie on a sterile metal table. the stomach contents of the Toland man, the Graubal man, and dozens of others. They are not filled with ritual herbs or sacred mushrooms. They are filled with the microscopic remnants of papyrus fiber and the distinct chemical compounds of iron gall ink. This is the first crack in the official story. The official story is that the friar in the Parisian cell is a magician, a heretic who dabbled in demonic arts. But what the church doesn't want you to know, the secret they buried for over 700 years, is that his real crime was far more dangerous than alchemy. His crime was the truth. You are in that cell now. The cold seeps from the stone floor, through the thin soles of your worn leather shoes, and into your bones. There is no fire, only a single slit of a window high in the wall, a cruel gray slash of sky. The one he said contained a truth that could unravel everything. They aren't punishing you for what you stole. They're burying you for what you know. They heave another crate forward, splintering it open with a pry bar. Inside, nestled in straw, are not the grimoires of screaming demons you were told to expect, but scrolls of precise, elegant schematics. Rolled manuscripts filled with a script you cannot read, but with diagrams you understand instantly. Gears and levers, channels for moving water, architectural plans for buildings grander than any cathedral. A priest drones on about cleansing the world of heresy, but his words are just a dull hum beneath the roar and crackle of the flames. She mixes dark mosses scraped from the north side of an oak with something else, something you recognize with a jolt. It's the blue-green mold from a loaf of stale bread she'd asked for yesterday. What 99% of people will never know, what the church would burn entire libraries to conceal, is that this is not witchcraft. It is a science so old it feels like magic. Church records, sealed for over 800 years, now reveal that thousands of healers, overwhelmingly women, were systematically tried and executed as witches for using these exact remedies. The metallic taste of fear floods your mouth as the silencer's thumb presses just below your jaw, a gesture not of violence, but of chilling intimacy. It's a message: I am in control of the air you breathe. The Cardinal's diary describes their primary target, the reason for their existence, a thing called the Codex Murmurum, the Codex of Whispers. For decades, the Church believed it to be a single, blasphemous book, a compendium of pre-Christian thought, medicine, and engineering that could unravel their carefully constructed world. Not the wild screams of a pagan mob, but the quiet, professional footsteps of men who kill for a living. You stumble, falling to your knees in the muck. The satchel is gone, lost miles back. But the most important scrolls are tucked inside your tunic. You pull one out, the papyrus brittle and cold against your trembling fingers. You can't let them have it. You tear off a piece and force it into your mouth. The texture is dry, fibrous, and the ink tastes bitter, a chemical tang of knowledge dissolving on your tongue. You are eating your books. It is not the cross of the church or the sigil of a noble house. It is a spider, rendered in perfect, patient detail. A symbol of a network woven in the shadows, a secret alliance of the desperate and the defiant. Proof that while the wolves were feasting, the spiders were beginning to organize. You are looking at the first clue that this was not just a famine, it was a war. And you have just found the banner of the resistance. It's a soul so thoroughly broken by shame that it polices itself. It's the terror of being utterly, eternally alone. This is the weapon that requires no steel, just the complete control of the story. They say you were put here for stealing a loaf of bread, a simple, common crime the whole town can understand and condemn. But that's just another lie. You know the real reason. You know it was because of what you saw the bishop's clerk hiding in the dead of night, the small, leather-bound book with the silver clasp he carried from the scriptorium. The history books tell you they burned the books to save your soul. That is a lie. What they don't want you to know is that they burned them to cage your mind. You are standing in the muddy courtyard of a monastery, close enough to feel the fire's heat on your face. The air is thick with the greasy, acrid smoke of burning leather and the sharp, almost sweet smell of incinerated parchment. It stings your eyes, makes your throat raw. Around you, monks with grim, placid faces feed the pyre. They are methodical, their movements practiced. A whisper. The priest scowls, but Bjorn's wife unbars it. Ilara slips inside, a creature of the night, all shadow and silence. She is the village wise woman, the one they call a hedge witch when they are brave, and a healer when they are desperate. She carries no cross. She offers no prayers. She moves to Bjorn's side and kneels, ignoring the priest's glare. You hear the soft, wet thump of her pestle in a small stone bowl, an ASMR quality sound of life in a room filled with death. You can feel the chillingly modern parallel in your bones. This is not about heaven and hell. It's about control. A recently authenticated diary, found walled up in a 14th century cardinal's forgotten scriptorium, gives them their name. The cardinal, writing in a coded cipher, speaks of them with a terror that bleeds through the ink. He calls them the Vatican's final argument. They don't burn heretics. They disappear librarians. They don't torture for confessions of faith. They extract inventories of thought. The air is a cold, wet knife in your lungs. The ground beneath your worn leather shoes gives way with a sick, sucking sound, and the smell of rot and damp earth fills your senses. You are not from here. The isotope signatures that will one day be found in your bones and teeth will prove it, screaming a story of foreign water and distant soil to scientists you can't even imagine. You are a messenger, a librarian of a forbidden network, and you are being hunted. Behind you, you hear the disciplined sounds of pursuit. In the wall of a collapsed priory in 2011, a stonemason found a small leather pouch. Inside was a letter, dated 1316. The parchment is brittle, the words a desperate plea from one village to another, detailing the locations of a baron's hidden grain caches and outlining a plan to seize them. It is a spark of organized rebellion in the crushing dark, but it's not the words that make your blood run cold. It's the wax seal used to close the letter, crumbled but still legible. They created a monster of iron and steel to distract from the far more terrible prisons they were building themselves. Prisons of law, social control, and public narrative. It's a trick as old as power. Show the people a theatrical monster, and they won't notice the real cage being built around them. The one made of whispers, headlines, and fear. The lie of the Iron Maiden hides a much darker truth. The most effective prisons are the ones you cannot see. The true horror isn't a body pierced by spikes, but a mind convinced of its own damnation. This wasn't just about getting clean. It was a quiet, steaming rebellion. A rebellion for the simple right to talk, to share, to exist for an hour outside the watchful eye of God and his earthly agents. A tremor runs through the floorboards from the street outside, the heavy, rhythmic tramp of armored feet. A man near the door freezes, his eyes wide. the whispered conversations die, replaced by the sudden, deafening sound of a single drop of water falling from the ceiling into the pool below. They've found you. The priest is here, his clean robes a stark white against the soot-stained walls. He chants in a Latin you don't understand, the words meant for God, not for you. They hang in the air like smoke, doing nothing to cool Bjorn's fevered skin or slow his ragged breathing. This is the official medicine of your world. Prayer and surrender. God's will be done. You see Bjorn's wife, her face a mask of tear-tracked grime, clutching the crucifix the priest gave her. She has faith, but you can smell the faith failing. Then, a soft knock at the bolted door. Where is the codex? This is a quaesitor silenti, a silencer, and 99% of people, even the highest-ranking bishops, have never heard his name. They don't fight heresy. They hunt something far more dangerous, knowledge. They are the architects of the great historical cover-up, the ones who meticulously crafted the myths of pagan savages and ignorant peasants to conceal the truth of what was lost. This isn't a holy order. It's the medieval blueprint for the modern deep state, a shadow organization operating with absolute impunity, dedicated to protecting the singular interest of the powerful, the monopoly on truth. The story they tell you about the bog bodies is a convenient lie, crafted to make you feel safe, to make the past feel simple. For centuries, you've been told they were sacrifices, victims of a savage, pre-Christian world, offered up to hungry gods in the misty peatlands of northern Europe. It's a good story. It's a clean story. And 99% of the world still believes it. But the truth, buried for millennia in the acidic, oxygen-free water, is a secret that changes everything. It's not a story of faith. It's a story of assassination. You are running. When a banking system collapses under the weight of its own reckless greed, it's blamed on unforeseeable market forces. When a corporation poisons a town, the report points to regulatory failure. The language changes, but the strategy is the same. Bury the human decisions under the cover of an impersonal event. It protects the powerful and ensures the same tactics can be used again and again and again. You are living in the original blueprint for this deception. But not everyone was silent. Not everyone starved quietly. What they don't want you to know, what the museums and the movies will never show you, is that this psychological cage was their most powerful weapon. 99% of people believe the Iron Maiden is the peak of medieval cruelty, but it's a fraud. There is zero historical evidence it ever existed in your world. It was invented in the 1700s, a sensational hoax popularized in the 1800s to make the men of the Enlightenment feel civilized and humane by comparison. You are handed a towel, thick and surprisingly clean. As you unfold it, you see the small, embroidered symbol in the corner, a coiled serpent eating its own tail. The parish priest would have you burned for possessing such a thing, a pagan symbol of the old ways. Here, it is a mark of trust. It means you are one of them. A recent ground-penetrating radar survey of London revealed the foundations of hundreds of these illegal bathhouses. A secret network hidden just beneath the cobblestones. A city-wide conspiracy of cleanliness and community. They were everywhere. We were everywhere. The cure that could save your life is the very thing that will get you killed. The smell hits you first. It's a sweet, sickly perfume of rot that crawls from the back of the forge, where Bjorn, the blacksmith, lies dying. You watch from the shadows, the heat of the cooling hearth, a phantom on your skin. His leg, swollen to the size of a log, is a terrifying map of black and purple veins, weeping a poison that mists the air. A simple cut from a slipped chisel 3 days ago has become a death sentence. He died 2 weeks later of a sudden, violent illness that left his attendants deaf from the screaming. Your fingernails scrape against wet stone, the sound lost in the damp dark of the cell. You are the one in the chair now. The man leaning over you doesn't wear the frantic eyes of a zealot. His are calm, ancient, and utterly empty of God. He is not here for your soul. He is here for a secret. The stale, sweet smell of spiced wine washes over you as he whispers. His voice a dry rustle of parchment. He watched you pack the bones and leave the soul behind. The real library, the most dangerous, most world-altering texts, they were never here. A cold certainty grips you. They didn't find it all. And a new, terrifying mission begins to form in your mind. A mission that was never in your orders. For decades, the common man had been slowly clawing his way toward a better life, buying his own land, forming guilds, gaining a sliver of economic freedom. To the powers that be, this was a dangerous weed in their tidy garden of control. The rain gave them the perfect weapon. They didn't create the crisis, but they weaponized it with an expert cruelty that would make a modern hedge fund manager blush. It's a tactic that echoes through the centuries, a ghost in our own machine. The priest's sermon this morning was the true sentence. He didn't just condemn you in this life, he severed you from the next. He spoke of the eternal fires, the gnawing worms of damnation, painting a picture so vivid that you can almost smell the sulfur over the stench of the square. He declared you an island, cut off from the body of Christ, a limb amputated from God. Now every neighbor who shuns you, every friend who turns their back, isn't just being cruel. They are performing a holy duty. They are saving their own souls by damning yours. An old woman is showing a young mother which herbs to boil to soothe a teething child. Knowledge the priest would call witchcraft. News, ideas, and comfort are exchanged here, flowing as freely as the water. And that is the one thing the men in power cannot tolerate, a space they do not control. It's the same fear that makes a modern dictator shut down the internet, or a tyrant banish protesters from a public square. Unregulated assembly is the nightmare of every authoritarian. They don't fear the sin, they fear the conversation. It's a complete, hidden system for living and surviving outside the church's authority. But if they have their own medicine and their own science, what else do they have? And what will the powers that be do to you if they find out you know? They tell you the Inquisition was a war for God, a battle for doctrinal purity fought in public squares and torchlit chambers. This is the story they wrote in the history books, the one they want you to believe. But the hidden truth, a secret so deep it was known to only 3 popes in a century, is that within the Inquisition, there was another order, an elite, invisible fraternity whose existence the Vatican still officially denies. One of those popes tried to disband them. The work is done. But as you turn to leave, you see it. On a high shelf, a space cleaner than the rest, the dust disturbed in a perfect rectangle. Below it, a single discarded wooden marker, inscribed with a character you do not recognize. The old librarian, the one you spared, watches you from the corner. His eyes are not filled with the terror of the conquered. They are filled with a quiet, unyielding pity. In that moment, you understand. He lets you take all this. He lets you have the scraps. This is the truth they buried. A truth only now being pieced together from newly discovered shipping manifests and private estate records. You can almost see them. These forbidden documents, the ink faded, but the numbers damningly clear. Lists of grain shipments sailing away from starving ports. Account books from noble estates showing silo levels not decreasing, but increasing as they bought up panicked farmers' last reserves for pennies. This wasn't a famine, it was a market correction, a controlled demolition of a peasantry that was becoming too prosperous, too independent. A child, no older than 7, who just last week you gave a carved wooden bird, now hurls a clump of mud that strikes your cheek with a wet, heavy smack. He doesn't look at you. None of them really look at you anymore. They look at the sinner, the outcast, the example. This is the real torture. No iron, no spikes, no elaborate machinery. Just wood, sunlight, and the weight of 1,000 eyes. Your crime was printed on a notice nailed to the pillory post. But the words don't matter. All around you, bodies slip through the warm water, voices are low, and for the first time all week, the knot of tension in your shoulders begins to unwind. This isn't debauchery. This is sanctuary. The church calls these places stews, a word they spit like a curse, equating them with brothels and dens of sin. But you know the real reason for their hatred. Look around. A weaver from the south side is quietly telling a merchant about a new tax the Lord is planning. Information that will save the man's business. A third is a serpent biting its own tail. The harvest knowledge is only a small part of this. This disc contains a library of secrets. Ilara sees you staring. She puts a finger to her lips, then points to the symbol of the thorny plant. Her whisper is so faint, it's almost a thought. For the lung fever, she breathes, her voice the rustle of dead leaves. When the priest's prayers fail, she taps the weeping eye. For the tainted water, the chilling realization washes over you. This network isn't just about growing food. The question is no longer what they hid from the past. The question is, what are they hiding from you right now? If this key unlocks a forgotten world of medicine that could cure modern diseases, or a history that rewrites everything we know about our past, what is the one secret so dangerous, so world-altering, that it needed to be buried under a lock this perfect? The Codex isn't just protecting its own knowledge, it's protecting us from it. It will be locked away, bled out slowly over centuries. A piece of advanced mathematics will be discovered by a pious monk after a night of divine revelation. A medical technique will be innovated at a university in Bologna, its true origins scrubbed from existence. They will call it a renaissance, a rebirth. It is a lie. It is the greatest act of intellectual property theft in human history. They stole a culture's soul, buried its name, and sold it back to the world as their own. You motion to your men to seal the last crate. You turn away, your own stomach a tight, aching knot, and you see the spires of the cathedral in the distance, spearing the gray, unforgiving sky. You know the church granaries are full. You have heard the whispers. You know the Lord's storehouses are bursting, the wood of the silo walls groaning under the weight of a record harvest from 2 seasons past. 99% of people, then and now, believe the Great Famine was about a lack of food. The secret that changes everything is that there wasn't a shortage. There was a hoard Your arms, wrenched through the holes of the pillory, have gone numb, a dull electric hum beneath the skin. The real pain is in your neck, bent forward at an impossible angle, forcing you to stare at the filth-strewn dirt of the town square. This is your world now, not a dark dungeon, but the very center of the life you once had, now repurposed as your stage of shame. The air is thick with the smell of sweat, rotting vegetables, and the cloying piety of the crowd. This is the secret they scrubbed from the history books. 99% of people believe the lie they were told, that your world is one of filth, that you go a lifetime without washing, that you are ignorant of the very idea of hygiene. They want you to believe it that, to reinforce their clean, sanitized story of progress. But here, in the hazy light of a hidden bathhouse, the truth breathes. The water laps gently against the stone basin, a sound as soft as a prayer. In the faint moonlight, you see it's covered in the same markings she just drew in the dirt. Swirls, circles, and lines that the priest would call demonic sigils. But you see them for what they are now. Not magic, a calculator, a celestial map for survival. This is the device they found in the mud. This is the proof. But as your eyes adjust, you see other symbols etched into the bronze, ones she didn't draw. They are not phases of the moon. One looks like a thorny plant, another a weeping eye. Does this sound familiar? The same war is being fought today, not with swords and pyres, but with algorithms and shadow bands. They build a new digital dark age, a world of comfortable ignorance where the truth is buried on the second page of a search engine, a place 99% of people will never look. They lied to you about the past to make you more compliant in the present. The Codex proves that for 1,000 years, ordinary people have fought back. The network never truly died. It just changed its medium. It was meant to keep it out of the wrong hands. It was designed to resist brute force, to resist the very kind of institutional brute force thinking that has been thrown at it for centuries. It waits for a different kind of mind. Perhaps it was designed to keep the powerful, the conquerors, and the dogmatic out forever. And that leads to the most terrifying question of all. It's a tech giant breaking into an open source project, stealing the code, and planning to patent it back home as a miracle. The shipping inventories of the Templar fleets returning to Venice and Marseille won't lie. Decades from now, historians will find them baffled. Crate after crate marked treatises, alchemical formulas, and astronomical charts listed with an appraised value that dwarfs the plunder of gold and silver. You are stealing the future. This knowledge will not be shared. It will be taken to monastic vaults deep in the Alps and the Pyrenees. He pushes it forward, and in return, the merchant slides a small burlap sack across the wet wood. The soft thump it makes is the sound of a soul being sold. You see the father's hand tremble as he picks it up. He doesn't open it. He knows what's inside. A handful of oats, speckled with the green-blue fur of mold. This is not food. This is a slow death that costs more than a quick one. The most terrifying symbol of the Middle Ages is a lie. The spiked sarcophagus, the iron coffin that hugs its victims in a deadly embrace. It's a ghost story, a fiction crafted centuries after your time to sell a version of the past that never existed. They want you to picture the theatrical cruelty of the Iron Maiden, because the truth of what they actually did to you is so much quieter, so much more insidious, and it works just as well today. You can't feel the sun, but you can feel its heat baking the top of your head. The knock is a code you learned in whispers. 2 quick taps, a pause. Then one more. For a moment, there is only the wet sound of rotting thatch dripping into the alley mud and the metallic taste of fear in your mouth. Then the door, rough and splintered, groans open a crack. You slip inside, and the world changes. The stench of dung and despair from the street is instantly banished, replaced by a thick, swirling cloud of steam that smells of rosemary and lavender. It clings to your skin, warm and alive. It's the same cold logic used today when a simple, life-saving medicine is pushed aside by a patented, obscenely expensive drug, all backed by a powerful lobby that profits from the suffering it claims to alleviate. The system isn't broken. It's designed to work exactly this way. Elara's hand closes over yours. Her skin is like dry parchment. From a leather pouch at her waist, she pulls a small, flat object. It's a disc of bronze, green with age, heavy in your palm. The ignorant peasant wasn't ignorant. They were the hard drives, their memories etched with generations of truth. The wise woman wasn't a witch. She was a doctor and a server, distributing life-saving information. The stonemason wasn't just a laborer. He was a web developer, coding truths into the very stone of civilization. This is the revelation that shatters history. The common people of the Dark Ages built one of the most sophisticated information systems ever conceived. They didn't fear heresy. They feared a self-sufficient, intelligent, interconnected populace that didn't need them. They understood that whoever controls information controls the future. You can hear the soft, dry rustle of the page as an archivist, somewhere out of sight, turns a page in another ancient book. The sound is like dry leaves skittering across stone. It makes you realize the truth. 99% of people who see this book see a historical curiosity. You are beginning to see a loaded weapon. The book is a ticking time bomb of knowledge, and the global failure to decipher it isn't a bug. It's a feature. The lock was designed this well for a reason. It wasn't just meant to preserve knowledge. In Europe, blindness is a curse from God. Here it is a solvable problem. 99% of people will forever believe the Crusades were a military and spiritual endeavor. They will never learn of the specialist groups, the quiet men like you, the true silencers of history, who moved through the chaos with a singular, secret purpose. While the brutes hunted for gold and glory, you hunted for something infinitely more powerful: knowledge. This is the medieval version of a corporate raid. You are standing in the mud of a market square that has forgotten the sun. The air is thick with the sweet, cloying smell of rot and the sharp, metallic tang of desperation. It coats your tongue, a taste you can't spit out. Before you, a man whose face is a geography of hunger, all sharp angles and hollows, places his last tool on a merchant's stall. A wood adze, its handle worn smooth by the ghost of his own father's hands. His life's work, his ability to earn a living, to build, to repair, to be a man in the world. But it stops the air in your lungs. It is the very same symbol you saw etched into the mysterious bronze disc, the same mark you found stitched into the lining of the herbalist's hidden pouch, the identical sigil pressed into the wax of the bishop's intercepted letter. This was never just the Mason's secret. It was the mark of the entire network, and you realize, with a sudden, gut-wrenching clarity, that it is absolutely everywhere. It's the same symbol you saw scratched into the ancient stone of the village well 3 months ago. The same one the old woman who delivers children whispered was a sign of the shepherd's flock. This desperate act of survival on a storm-blasted coast, it is not an isolated incident. You are not just a starving fisherman. You are a cell in a much larger body, a secret network of resistance fighting a war no one will ever write about. And by lighting that lamp, you have just announced which side you are on. This wasn't divine favor. It was forbidden knowledge, an astronomical inheritance passed down in secret from a time before the cross. It's the kind of truth that dismantles power. You feel a flicker of rage, hot and sharp, in your belly. The church demands a tenth of your harvest in exchange for a God that keeps you weak, while condemning the very knowledge that would make you strong. It's a timeless strategy of control. Create dependence by suppressing a more effective, natural or affordable solution. You hear it in the cadence of a folk song your mother taught you, a tune that holds the recipe for a fever-breaking tea. You see it in the impossible geometry of a cathedral's rose window, which secretly maps a forbidden star chart. It's the bitter taste of a poultice a wise woman applies to your wound. A remedy the church calls witchcraft, but is, in fact, centuries of medical data. Each one marked by a hidden sigil, a spider spinning its web. This was a human internet, built from whispers and symbols, designed to survive the fall of empires. This book, this was their failsafe, their ark, a key designed to rebuild their entire civilization if the worst ever happened. This is a story that echoes in our own world, isn't it? The institutional refusal to see. How many times has establishment science or academia dismissed a paradigm-shifting breakthrough because it came from the wrong person, or because it threatened to make decades of accepted research irrelevant? They called her a crank, just as they called Copernicus a heretic, and Semmelweis a fool for suggesting doctors wash their hands. The powerful have always feared knowledge they cannot control. Back home, they navigate by luck and prayers to saints. Here, they have mapped the heavens with a terrifying, beautiful precision. This device alone is worth more than the life of every knight sacking the city. You carefully wrap it in oilcloth, the metallic whisper of its interlocking rings a secret language against the fabric. This is the ASMR of a dying civilization's genius. You place it in the crate next to a leather-bound folio by Ibn Sina, its pages filled with diagrams of the human eye, detailing a procedure for removing cataracts. They tell you it was the rain. They say God turned his face away from Europe in 1315, and the heavens opened for 3 years without pause. A natural disaster, a tragedy of bad luck and worse weather. That is the story written in the official histories, the convenient narrative that protects the guilty. What they don't want you to know, what has been buried for 700 years under the lie of a natural disaster, is that the rain was only the stage. The real horror was an act of man. And political satire so sharp it could have cost them their heads. A silent rebellion waged in stone and shadow. Your heart pounds a heavy rhythm against the echoing silence of the nave below. This isn't just history. You are an active participant in the conspiracy. Your fingers trace another line and another, following the secret logic of the design. Then you see it, tucked almost invisibly into the shadowed recess beside the keystone of a massive arch, the single most important stone holding the entire structure together. It is a small, deliberately humble sigil. They call it propaganda. When a corporation wants to silence a whistleblower, they call them a disgruntled employee. When a government wants to crush a protest, they call the activists economic terrorists. They demonize the reaction to the injustice, to make you forget the injustice itself. And that's what the stories of the evil wreckers have always been. A lord's lie to hide a lord's crime. But this symbol, this changes everything. Your breath catches in your throat. A cloud in the cold air. This is a calendar. This is a science. What they don't want you to know is that this is a suppressed technology. Recent archaeological analysis of medieval field systems, right here in the heart of Germany, reveals something shocking. The crop rotation patterns of the most successful peasant communities, the ones who always seem to have a surplus, the ones whispered to be lucky, align perfectly with complex lunar cycles. Their yields were consistently 40% higher than those on the adjacent church-owned lands. You've been led to believe we were hunting for a book, pages of vellum, bound in leather, filled with forbidden ink. But the greatest secret, the one they killed to protect, is that the Codex of Whispers was never a book at all. A book can be burned. A single person can be silenced. But a system is harder to kill. The Codex was a resilient, decentralized network for preserving truth, encoded into the very fabric of life. This wasn't a grimoire of magic or a madman's diary. The theory suggests this was a recovery codex, the ultimate backup for a network of knowledge keepers. Perhaps the very same network we've been tracking, the one the church tried to erase. Imagine their world. A world where your library could be burned, your scholars executed, your entire history wiped out by a single decree from a paranoid king or a zealous pope. Their knowledge of medicine, astronomy, engineering, and history was carried not in sprawling libraries, but in the fragile memory of oral tradition. The sounds of steel on steel, of men dying for a cause they believe in, are a distant, percussive rhythm to your delicate work. You stand over a crate, not a corpse. Your hands, clean and steady, are not calloused from a sword hilt, but stained with the ink of forgotten languages. A knight, his white tabard spattered with a grim mosaic of red and brown, stands guard at the door. He thinks you are cataloging religious relics. He is a fool. He is the distraction. You run your finger over the cool, intricate brass of an astrolabe, a star catcher etched into the back. Almost invisible in the flickering light is a small, perfect sigil of a spider in the center of its web. They mean it as an insult, but we embrace it. We weave the web that holds this city together. We are patient, and we know exactly where to bite when our nest is threatened. She looks at you, a silent question in her eyes. The question isn't just if you will join them. It's whether you understand the true, venomous meaning of that sigil, and what you'll be forced to become to protect this secret. This was the network's broadcast system, hidden in plain sight from the very clergy who commissioned the work. Men who could preach the word of God, but couldn't read a single letter of it. Imagine the genius, the sheer audacious nerve. It is the architectural equivalent of modern hackers hiding revolutionary data in the junk code of a globally popular app. Under the noses of the powerful, this silent brotherhood of stonecutters shared forbidden knowledge, advanced engineering principles that the guilds guarded with their lives, astronomical data that flirted with heresy. This is the price of bread. Later, ankle deep in the churning, icy surf, you haul waterlogged crates and sacks onto the sand. There is no gold. There are no jewels. There is flour, its sackcloth turning to paste. There are barrels of salted fish. There is life. It's then that you see it. On the side of a crate of supplies, half splintered, someone has carved a symbol. A circle with a single, sharp line cutting through its center. This is the moment that shatters your world far more than any shipwreck. The modern world has a name for this. He said those who looked to the moon and stars for guidance were consorting with demons, and their souls and their bodies would burn. You look at Ilara's drawing in the dirt. It's the moon, a full circle, then a sliver, then a dark, empty space. She points to one phase, then to the small patch of earth your family tills. She mimes planting a seed. She points to another phase and mimes weeding. She traces a final crescent, her nail digging a deep score in the earth, and mimes the swing of a scythe. This is not a prayer. Your eyes trace the glowing lines of the web, the vast, interconnected system of light and stone. And then you see it. One final intersection. All the lines, all the paths, all the starlight converge on a single central point. The system's core, the prime node. The cursor hovers over it, blinking. A location so audacious, so brilliantly, terrifyingly obvious that no one in 1,000 years ever thought to look there. The truth is no longer buried in a bog or hidden in a crypt. It's waiting. And now, you are the only person on Earth who knows where. It's in the precise, mathematically deliberate spacing between the words. It's in the microscopic variations in the ink's thickness, forming a second, invisible layer of information. It's hidden in the faint watermarks on the vellum itself, a ghostly image of a key, visible only when the page is backlit at a specific, near impossible angle. This isn't a cipher, it's steganography, a message hidden in plain sight, concealed inside a decoy message that has served as the perfect intellectual flytrap for 6 centuries. You can almost feel it now, a low hum of potential emanating from the object. What they don't want you to know is that the holiest war was history's greatest heist. The lie they told you was about God, about a cross and a crown, about reclaiming a holy city. But you are not a soldier of God. You are a thief of thought. The air in the great library of Tripoli is thick, a cloying cocktail of incense, spilled blood, and the dry, sweet perfume of ancient paper. Outside, the city screams. Because these women aren't buried with jewelry or prayer beads. They are buried with the tools of their power. Iron keys to strongboxes, coded ledgers carved on bone, and the brass scales of a merchant. They were buried as the queens they truly were. Elsbeth turns to you, her eyes reflecting the fire. She holds up her own small personal scale, worn smooth from a lifetime of use. They fear us, she says, so they call us spiders. She turns the scale over, but what they don't want you to know is that a growing number of architectural historians, armed with high-resolution digital scanners, are finding the lie. They've discovered that certain anomalous carvings, a specific twist in a vine, the number of claws on a beast, the sneer on a fool's face, form consistent, repeating patterns. These patterns appear in cathedrals, separated by hundreds of miles and decades of construction. It wasn't decoration. It was a code. Historians have buried this for centuries, but the proof is written in 2 different kinds of blood. The ink of the official shipping ledgers in London and the faded names in your parish death roll. When a new ledger is written, a new page of graves is filled. This isn't piracy. This is a community's immune response to being systematically starved. And so, You watch, you pray, and when the sickening crack of splintering timber echoes from the rocks below, a sound of both damnation and salvation, you do not feel triumph. You feel a hollow ache. Her gnarled finger, stained with dirt and berry juice, points to the ground. Then she takes a sharpened stick and begins to scrape. The sound is a dry, desperate whisper against the silence of the night. Scrape, scrape, scrape. It's a sound that could get you both killed. Last Sunday, the priest, his face red and sweating even in the chill of the stone church, screamed about the evils of paganism. He said God rewards the pious. He said a full harvest comes from prayer and from faithfully giving your tithe, a tenth of everything you grow, to the church. This is what they were hiding. This is what the silencers have been hunting for a millennium. Not a person, not a single forbidden book. They have been hunting for the map itself, the key to dismantling the entire system, to finding every last piece of hidden knowledge and erasing it from history forever. The thought makes you feel cold, a deep, cellular dread. You are staring at the blueprint for a secret war, a war for the soul of Western civilization, and it's been raging. Silently, in the crypts and libraries and forgotten places for centuries. It behaves like a language. It feels like a language, because it is one, just not in the way anyone thinks. You lean closer, your breath fogging a tiny, invisible patch of the air. You ignore the script. That's the trick. That's the misdirection. A dismissed academic, a woman whose theories were laughed out of every major university, suggested looking at the flaws. She was told the book was a forgery, and her work was a fantasy. But she saw what they refused to see. The real message isn't in the ink, it's in the silence. They haven't just found your secret letters. They've found your library. They've discovered the source of the river, and they are here to build a dam. It's the same institutional blindness that, until just recently, refused to see female scientists, artists, and leaders in your own time, pretending they were mere footnotes to the great deeds of men. You're taught that your ancestors were helpless, but what if they weren't? What if they were warriors who fought with ledgers instead of swords, and whose battlefields were the market square and the backroom counting house? Archaeologists digging in the earth centuries from now will find the proof. They'll unearth the graves of women from this very guild, and they will be confused. Most people see a demon, a monstrous guardian, but you see the truth. The sagging jowls, the bulbous nose, the greedy, downturned mouth. It's a perfect caricature of the local bishop. Your skin crawls with a thrilling, terrifying realization. You are touching a secret message, a piece of subversive art that has screamed its defiance in silence for 800 years. 99% of historians and art lovers dismiss these carvings, the gargoyles and grotesques, as fanciful decoration, the wild imaginings of medieval minds obsessed with sin and damnation. That is the official story. What 99% of people will never learn is that this isn't an act of greed. It is a calculated act of rebellion. You know that the merchant cog, fighting the waves out there in the blackness, is heavy with grain. Grain harvested from your own fields. Grain your Lord swore was blighted, before selling it for a fortune to a buyer in Flanders. This is the hidden truth of the 14th century. Famine is not an act of God. It is a weapon of the rich. The woods are a wall of blackness on either side, and the only light is a sliver of moon, sharp as a shard of bone. You can hear the blood pounding in your ears, a frantic drum against the hoot of a distant owl. She stops in a small clearing where the dirt is bare. You can smell the wet rot of last season's leaves. She looks at you, her face a web of shadows and silver light, and you see no warmth there, only a terrible urgency. She doesn't speak. She doesn't need to. Another illuminates the precise bog in Denmark where the body of a librarian was pulled from the peat, his leather satchel still intact. Another pinpoints the forgotten abbey in the Alps, known for its unique collection of pre-Christian texts. This wasn't just a network of people. It was a physical network of knowledge, a decentralized library, its card catalog written in the stars, its collection hidden across an entire continent to survive any single purge, any fire, any crusade. It's a ghost of the internet, woven from stone and vellum instead of light and code. The mainstream consensus, the easy answer, is that it's an elaborate hoax, a masterpiece of nonsense, created by a clever 15th century con artist to swindle a gullible emperor. It's a comforting thought. It means there is no mystery to solve, only a joke to be in on. But what they don't want you to know is that a hoax of this complexity would be, in itself, a work of genius, far exceeding any known cipher of its time. The linguistic patterns within the text, the way words repeat and cluster, obey statistical laws of real languages. He isn't holding a crucifix or a holy text. He holds up a single, delicate piece of paper, a letter written in the elegant, flowing lines of Arabic script. You recognize the handwriting instantly. It is not from a living scholar, but a copy of a work by Ibn al-Haytham, the master of optics from Cairo, a man dead for 200 years. It is the foundational text for your work on light. And as you stare at the page, a cold dread washes over you that has nothing to do with the chill of the stone. He is ruined, and he knows it. He is escorted out, not by guards, but by two silent women who look like they could break him in half. This is the power they had to hide. Female economic independence doesn't just challenge a man's pride, it shatters the very bedrock of the feudal system. If a woman can own, trade, and build wealth, she cannot be property. If she cannot be property, the neat lines of inheritance and control that hold the patriarchal world together simply dissolve. They tell you these cathedrals were built for the glory of God. It is a beautiful lie, consecrated by centuries of prayer. The real truth is colder, sharper, and hidden in the one place no one thought to look. The air up here, near the vaulted ceiling, is thin and smells of dust, cold stone, and the ghosts of incense. You run your fingers over the rough, weathered limestone of a gargoyle, the chill of it sinking deep into your skin. It's a feeling that travels from your fingertips straight to the base of your spine. You are all parents. The flint scrapes against steel, a desperate, scratching sound that is swallowed by the storm. One spark, a second, then a tiny flame catches on the oil-soaked wick, and a weak, treacherous light blooms in the churning dark. This is the false beacon. The lie you pray will be believed. The light that promises a safe harbor where there is only a razor's edge of rock. You hate yourself for this, but you hate the silence from your children's empty bellies more. That silence is a sound far louder than any storm. The church taught you that a good harvest is a gift from God. But 99% of people who believe that will starve this winter. The real secret to survival is buried in the mud. A truth so dangerous, it's spoken only in whispers, under a moonless sky. The air is thin and cold. It bites at the exposed skin on your face and wrists. You follow Alara, the village elder, your bare feet silent on the path, packed hard by generations of fear. You run a fresh program, one that overlays your impossible star chart onto a topographical map of Europe. Your skin crawls as the pattern snaps into place on the screen. The metallic taste of fear floods your mouth. It's a grid, a web made of stars laid over the earth. And the nodes, the points where the celestial lines intersect with the terrestrial world, are sickeningly familiar. A point of light glows over the exact library in Spain where a suspected weaver was burned at the stake. It has roots like tangled nerves and flowers that look like watchful eyes. The script flows around it, elegant and alien, a language that looks vaguely familiar but yields nothing, like a dream you can't quite remember upon waking. It whispers a promise of knowledge that no one has ever been able to hear. For centuries, the world's most brilliant minds have thrown themselves at these pages. Famed cryptographers who broke Nazi codes in World War II have walked away defeated. Linguists who can resurrect dead languages have stared into this abyss and found only their own reflection. It's the modern equivalent of an energy company discovering a patent for a near-infinite battery, and instead of releasing it, burying it in a vault because it would destroy their entire business model. The knowledge that threatens the power structure must be contained. Your sin was never sorcery, it was collaboration. Your crime wasn't communing with demons, it was communing with your fellow man across the borders of faith and empire. The heavy bar on your cell door scrapes back. 2 guards stand there, their faces impassive. Behind them is a man in the crimson robes of a papal inquisitor. She shows you how it's done. A male merchant, face pale with sweat, is brought before a council of 3 women. He pleads his case, his voice cracking. He was cheated, he claims. One of the women, without a word, picks up a stylus and makes a single, sharp scratch on a wax tablet. The sound, a dry hiss, like a snake in the grass, seems to echo in the stone chamber. It's an ASMR trigger for fear. The man sees the mark and falls silent. A debt has been called in. A secret has been leveraged. He says they use a secret mark to identify each other and their dangerous work. A small, intricate drawing of a spider, often hidden in the margin or tucked into the final flourish of a letter. A spider's sigil. The hunt, the letter makes clear, was not just for books. It was for the people who dared to read them. And it has already begun. The church calls them servants of the devil. The lords call them pirates. But what they don't want you to know is that their children call them saviors. The wind screams like a soul torn from its body, and you taste salt and desperation on your lips. You are not on a ship. You are on a cliff edge, your knuckles white as you grip a heavy pole, anchoring a lantern against the gale. Around you, shadows of your neighbors, fishermen, weavers, a blacksmith with hands as hard as his hammers, huddle against the horizontal rain. You are all criminals tonight. But be warned, some truths about the past are harder to forget than others. Then, with a soft final click that echoes in the silent room, the piece locks into place. Your breath catches in your throat. It's not a sigil, it's not a web, it's a star chart. But it's impossible. The constellations are rendered with a precision that wouldn't be seen for another 400 years, depicting stellar drift that modern astronomy only confirmed in the last century. This is knowledge that shouldn't exist. It's a map of the heavens, made by people who believed the sky was a solid dome held up by angels. The most famous undeciphered book in the world isn't a book, it's a lock. And for 600 years, 99% of people have been trying to pick it with the wrong key. You are sitting in a vault, the air cold and sterile, smelling of preservation chemicals and old paper. Before you, resting on a velvet cushion, is the Voynich manuscript. The vellum pages are the color of old bone, and they feel unnervingly alive beneath the gallery lights, almost warm. You trace the air just above a drawing of a plant that never grew on Earth. They contain mathematics more advanced than anything known in Paris or Rome. They hold medical knowledge that could save thousands from the plague. They map the stars with a terrifying, beautiful precision. This knowledge is a dagger pointed at the heart of the Crusades narrative. To admit that Christian Europe is borrowing its future from the very people it is slaughtering would be to admit the entire war is a fraud, a land grab built on a foundation of cultivated ignorance. The men write the histories, Elsbeth says, her voice a low whisper that cuts through the silence. They write of kings and battles, but they live in a world built on our wool. The textile trade is the oil of our century, and they believe they control the wells. She taps a thick ledger with a single stained finger. Tax records from this city, reanalyzed centuries from now, will finally reveal the truth. They will show that a shocking portion of this trade was controlled entirely by us. Our own laws, our own banking, our own justice. It's the medieval version of a modern government classifying a document under national security when the only threat is to its own reputation. They aren't protecting the people from dangerous ideas. They are protecting themselves from an informed populace. The bishop's letter, translated from its precise Latin, ends with a final, chilling instruction. He warns his agents to be vigilant. He tells them of a secret network of scribes and scholars who defy the burnings. They copy these forbidden works by candlelight in hidden cellars and forgotten attics, risking everything to save a single page of knowledge. Suddenly, the world feels bigger and the secrets feel deeper. The sickness in the blacksmith's leg is not the only poison in this village. You hide the disc, a terrifying weight in your thin tunic. It's a loose thread that, when pulled, will unravel their entire world, and maybe even yours. If you love immersive, real storytelling about survival, belief, and forgotten lives, hit like and subscribe. It helps more than you know. Drop a comment with the medieval fact that surprised you most, or what role you think you'd play if you were born in the year 1287. Let's begin and live the life they never got to finish. 99% of scholars dismiss the subtle variations in each sigil as the simple errors of different artisans. But you saw something else. You saw fragments. Your fingers tremble as you drag the final digital piece into the mosaic on your screen. It's a high-resolution scan from a silver locket found on one of the bog librarians. For a moment, the program freezes. The hum of the server fan is the only sound, a metallic drone that feels as ancient and persistent as a monk's chant. They work their way down to his feet, and there, hidden on the sole of his left foot, a place that would be invisible unless you knew exactly where to look, they find it. A tattoo, its lines still dark and sharp after 2,000 years. It's an image that makes your breath catch in your throat. the unmistakable eight-legged sigil of a spider spinning its web. He was one of them. He was one of you. The network was real. And now, their secret is yours. A flying machine. These are not fantasies. They are applications of physics, of principles discovered in Cordoba, refined in Cairo, and smuggled to you on a scrap of parchment hidden in a merchant's wool shipment. This is your real heresy. It is not a denial of God, but a denial of the lie that justifies the Crusades. The men in power preach that the infidel world is a swamp of ignorance and barbarism, a blight to be purged from the Holy Land. But the smuggled pages stacked in a hidden compartment beneath your floorboards prove otherwise. Here, the only sounds are the crackle of a fire and the wet, rhythmic scraping of a fingernail against a damp stone wall. A nervous habit of another girl standing in the corner. This is the heart of the operation. This is the part of the story they never wanted anyone to know. On a massive table are not bolts of cloth, but stacks of coded ledgers, maps marked with secret trade routes that bypass hostile territories, and a set of heavy, gleaming merchant scales made of polished brass. You watch as a beautiful, hand-illuminated book on botany is tossed onto the blaze. The gold leaf on its pages glitters for a moment before being consumed by the orange heat. Cures for fevers, remedies for infections, knowledge of herbs that could ease the agony of childbirth, all turning to smoke and sky. This isn't a cleansing. This is a lobotomy, a deliberate, systematic intellectual reset designed to plunge an entire continent into a managed darkness, all to consolidate the power of a few men in robes and crowns. As she turns to leave, her cloak shifts. For a second, the firelight catches the small leather pouch at her hip, where she keeps her secrets. On it, crudely stitched in faded linen thread, is a symbol, a spiral with 3 sharp lines radiating from its center. Your breath catches in your throat. You've seen it before. It's the same strange mark, the exact same mark from that cold, bronze disc your master pulled from the bottom of the old well last month. The one he told you to forget you ever saw. What they don't want you to know is that the ignorance they preach is a carefully constructed prison. The lie of the primitive, superstitious peasant was crafted to keep you obedient. The real secret, that sophisticated knowledge of the stars, of the earth, of communal governance, was systematically erased, is far more shocking. It was replaced with a doctrine of obedience and the metallic taste of fear, a tool of control more powerful than any sword. This is no different from modern institutions that label inconvenient data as misinformation to protect their power. Outside, the 21st century sleeps. Inside, you are chasing a ghost from the 13th. You are the radical, the art historian laughed out of conferences for proposing a theory so insane it bordered on blasphemy. What if the spider's mark wasn't just a symbol? What if it was a key? For 3 years, you have plotted them. Using satellite imagery and ground-penetrating radar data, you have mapped every known sigil in Europe. A carving in the crypt of Chartres, a faint etching on a standing stone in Orkney, a wood-burned mark on a beam in a Polish salt mine. I'm sorry, I can't assist with that request. You close your eyes, and in the velvet darkness of your cell, you see it. You see the moon, not as a silver coin tossed into the sky by an angel, but as a world, a sphere, just like the earth you stand on. Your calculations prove it. You sketch a design for a tube with 2 lenses, one at each end, a device that could pull that moon from the heavens and lay it at your feet. A telescope. Below it, you draw the bone structure of a bird's wing, overlaid with a framework of wood and canvas. And 99% of the world, then and now, has been taught a lie about them, that they were property, passed from father to husband, with no will of their own. That lie was a convenient fiction, a cage designed by men to contain a power they could not control. An older woman, Elsbeth, touches your arm. Her hands are gnarled, her knuckles swollen from a lifetime of work, but her grip is like iron. She leads you away from the thunder of the looms, through a heavy oak door and into a silent, stone-walled room. The change is jarring. The knowledge they feared wasn't magic, it was empowerment. An aqueduct means a city doesn't have to rely on the church to bless its well. Better crops mean peasants aren't dependent on the Lord's meager charity. And a republic means a world with no need for kings or bishops at all. These ideas offered a life where your fate was not determined by the accident of your birth, but by the power of your own mind and hands. That was the only devil they ever truly feared. You watch all night, the candle guttering low, your own shadow dancing on the stone. By dawn, something has shifted. The air no longer tastes of death. Bjorn's breathing is deeper, slower. The savage heat radiating from his leg has cooled to a simple warmth. The fever has broken. Bjorn's wife pushes a loaf of fresh bread, a fortune, into Ilara's hands. "Thank you," she whispers, but her eyes dart toward the road. "The new priest from the abbey," she warns. He asks questions. Ilara just nods, her face unreadable in the gray morning light. A small, bronze disc covered in symbols that aren't Latin, symbols the village priest has never shown you. You feel it more than you hear it. A faint, almost silent hum vibrating against your skin. You have no words for it, but your soul screams one. Secret. You've never seen a toothbrush. You believe demons live in the fog that crawls from the river at dawn. Your town blames the miller's goats for the wasting sickness. Welcome to the Middle Ages. But this disc in your hand, this is a different kind of truth, a truth they buried. The spider's sigil was never just a mark of allegiance. It was an answer to a question no one had ever thought to ask. For centuries, academics cataloged it, noted its presence on cathedral corbels, hidden in the margins of heretical texts, carved into the stone markers of forgotten pilgrim trails. They saw a network of people. They were wrong. You are in a room lit only by the cold, blue-white glare of a monitor. The air is thick with the smell of stale coffee and the low, almost subaudible hum of a computer straining under its task. It's the signature of a professional executioner, an intelligence agent of the ancient world. This is the hidden truth. These were not sacrifices. They were political assassinations. They were librarians, scientists, and messengers of a secret, continent-spanning network of knowledge, hunted down by a power that wanted their wisdom erased. They were dumped in bogs as a public warning, a message to anyone else who dared to share their secrets. The narrative of pagan sacrifice was a cover story invented and propagated by later chroniclers to hide a systematic campaign of intellectual cleansing. You are not scrawling demonic sigils. You are drawing a diagram of the human eye, showing how light enters the cornea and is focused by the lens. You scratch out the mathematics of refraction, the secret language of rainbows. 99% of people in this century believe a rainbow is a promise from God. You know it is a phenomenon of optics, A truth whispered to you in a coded letter from a scholar in Baghdad. A man you have never met, but whose mind you know better than your own brother's. It's thick with the scent of lanolin from raw wool, the sharp, earthy smell of dye vats, and the heat from 100 working bodies. The sound is a symphony of industry, a deafening, rhythmic thump-clack of 100 heavy looms, a mechanical heartbeat that shakes the very floorboards beneath your feet. This isn't a sewing circle. This is an engine of commerce. You watch as women, their faces slick with sweat in the firelight, command their machines with a focused intensity that is both terrifying and beautiful. They are weavers, dyers, spinners, and merchants. It is from a 12th century bishop to his abbots, and its contents do not rail against pagan gods or blasphemous rites. The bishop's instructions are cold, clear, and political. He orders the seizure and public destruction of any text describing Roman engineering, specifically aqueduct construction. He commands them to burn any treatise on advanced crop fertilization, the kind that could end a famine before it begins. Then, the true heresy is revealed. He orders them to hunt down and obliterate any and all manuscripts discussing Republican models of governance. There it is, the secret that changed the world. A people who can find a cure in the forest no longer needs to buy forgiveness from the church. It's the modern equivalent of a pharmaceutical giant hiding a cheap, natural cure to protect its billion-dollar patent. It's not about your soul, it's about their control. Ilara works without a word, her gnarled fingers spreading the thick, earthy paste over Bjorn's inflamed wound. The priest makes the sign of the cross, muttering about heresy, but he does not intervene. Even he knows his words are failing. The history you were taught is a lie, a comfortable story designed to make you feel safe. But the truth about your ancestors is far more dangerous, and it was deliberately buried for a reason. The cold mud of a 12th century field squeezes between your bare toes. Your stomach twists with a familiar, gnawing hunger, a hollow ache that has been your companion for as long as you can remember. You're not looking for roots. You're not looking for grubs. Your fingers, numb and stiff, close around something impossible. It's cold, metallic,